This video is sponsored by NVX Audio, your location for high-quality car audio components. Head over to NVX.com and check out their amps, subs, wiring, custom fit vehicle enclosures, and more. Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and today we're doing a really cool install. We're working on this 2013 Jeep Wrangler JKU. And our friends over at NVX actually hooked us up with some really awesome equipment for this install today. Now they sent us over this NVX preloaded subwoofer that actually is made specifically for this Jeep. It actually locks into the back seat, so when you're bumping around off-road, you're actually able to keep everything in place without really moving around. Additionally, they sent us over this amplifier, 750 watt at 2 ohm amplifier, a 4-gauge amplifier wiring kit, some speaker wire as well. So we're really excited to get these all thrown in this Jeep. Hopefully this install is great info for you, and we can really show you how these components really work well together. All right, so we got the hood popped open and we located our battery. It's on the passenger side of the vehicle. On the positive side of the battery, we're going to connect our power wire that NVX supplied. That power wire is going to go from this point to the power input on our amplifier. Now we're going to run that actually through the firewall and into the cabin of the Jeep itself. Okay, so to get firewall access to run our power wire from the battery to the amp, we're on the under the passenger side dash. So right there, as you can see, that's where the main wiring in the car goes through the rubber boot. Now there's plenty of space on the side of the boot to make a little slit, and what we did is put a little piece of wire through. And what we're going to use this wire for is to pull our power wire through the firewall safely, avoiding any damage to our factory wiring as right above it. Now the wiring kit that we chose to go with is this X kit. Basically it's a 4-gauge amplifier wiring kit. It's 100% pure copper, which is awesome. So this really can sport up to 1,000 watts. Comes with our main power wire, RCA cables, ground wire, fuse and fuse holder, remote turn-on wire, and quite a bit of speaker wire. Now you'll have your miscellaneous bits and pieces here, your heat shrink, your terminal ends, your fuses, a lot of good things here. So we're going to go ahead and pull this wire through the firewall, get everything prepped for mounting our fuse. Alright, here we are on the inside. We went ahead and attached our 4-gauge wire to our little wire that we're using to pull our power wire through, and we've taped it up really good. Now additionally, we got some WD-40, and we're going to lube up that grommet, that factory grommet there, and our wire really well, so that wire passes through that rubber grommet super easily, just so it doesn't get bound up on anything or cause any damage. Alright, so from up underneath, as you can see here, we went ahead and pulled our power wire right through the firewall, through that factory grommet, and adding that WD-40 really made the big difference. Now this wire is hanging down here. We're going to fish it up now to the top of the battery area following that factory loom wire, which actually puts it out right by the top passenger side of the battery. Okay, so we fish that wire right on up through by the battery itself. This prepares us to put in our inline fuse, get the fuse mounted, and get everything hooked up to the positive on your battery. Now it's a good idea at this time to remove the negative off the battery so you don't damage any electrical components within the car as you work on it. Okay, so we got our fuse holder mounted. We're going to go ahead and put our cover on. We ran the wire over to the positive there. We got to get that tied down. Remember, the negative's still off. With that fuse cover on, we're basically done under the hood. Now we'll head inside the cabin of the vehicle and go ahead and start running the wire to our NVX amplifier. Alright, at this point, let's go ahead and find a good place to mount our new amplifier. Now the best generally for these Jeeps is actually under the seats. Okay, so we went ahead and just laid the seat back. We kept everything plugged in, but that just gave us enough space that we can actually mount the amplifier under the seat. Now this NVX amp on this Jeep fits perfectly. Nice little spot. There are no vents down there, so no chance of overheating. And there's plenty of airflow under the seat, as this seat actually sits pretty high. So we are pretty comfortable with this location. We're now going to run our power wire, our ground. Actually, there's a factory ground location. We're going to clean the paint around this factory ground and use this for our amplifier as well. After we got our power and ground run to the amplifier, we're going to run our RCAs and our remote turn-on wire up to our radio in the dash. And lastly here, our speaker output, we're going to run a line all the way to the rear trunk area so we can go ahead and get our brand new NVX Jeep Wrangler enclosure all mounted. Alright, so we went ahead and just popped this panel off. There's really 2 clips up in the front and 1 in the back, and then it comes loose. And as you can see, we zip tied a power wire right along the factory loom and had it come out right there, right into the positive of our amplifier. Now we're going to do the same for our ground of our amplifier, but running it along to this factory grounding stud. Okay, so we went ahead and got our ground wire all hooked up right to our factory stud. At this time, we now need to run our RCAs and our remote turn-on wire to our radio and our speaker wire output from the amplifier to the NVX sub-enclosure in the trunk area. Okay, so power and ground, we got our speaker wire run. The speaker wire just comes right out here, and we'll work it on our way back to the trunk area. Okay, let's go ahead and get our RCAs, our remote turn-on wire, attached to our aftermarket radio. Now this would be a little different if you had a factory radio. If you had a factory radio, you're going to need a line-out converter, which essentially converts the high-level speaker output from the radio to a low-level signal that the amplifier can read, unless your amplifier has speaker wire input. So go ahead and check your amplifier. On this model specifically, since we're using RCAs from our amplifier, this has an RCA output, so we're going to be okay. Now to get this radio out, we're going to have to remove this dash bezel, which is actually one big piece all the way around. This little top rubber piece comes out and it exposes a screw. Go ahead and remove that. Typically a 7mm fits. Now up underneath the dash here, this does pop down. Just held on with clips. You just pull from the top on both sides, and there's a 7mm there. And same on the other side, a 7mm. Go ahead and remove those 2. Once you've done so, you can actually go ahead and get your finger up underneath each little corner here. Now you gotta be super careful, but just to apply some even pressure just to pop it on free. Now what it's gonna do is it's just gonna wiggle on loose. Now you may have to pop your switches out, which they're just held on with clips. You can disconnect the main harness from your switch bank here for your power windows, if you have them. And after that, this whole bezel will actually pop right on out. Now once you've uninstalled that dash bezel up and around the radio, you're going to see that the radio itself will have 4 7mm screws as well. There's our main plug that went to our window switches. You can relieve that red little switch, you move it up, and then you just press the tab and it will actually come free. So we're going to go ahead and remove our 4 screws, whether it's an aftermarket or factory radio. The radio itself will come on out, exposing the outputs that we'll need for our RCAs. Okay, so we disconnected those screws. The radio pops on out. We just carefully laid it down here. As you can see, everything's been wired up previously by the previous installer. With our Pioneer out, we connected our RCA inputs into the subwoofer output. Our extra wire we just bundled nicely. It'll fit back behind the dash. And then our remote turn-on wire, remember it's this silver wire. We had, fortunately, a lead off the radio, which this connects into the blue-white wire on the wiring harness. It has a quick disconnect just in case. But essentially we tapped into that, and that's going to provide the signal for our amplifier to turn on when the radio is on itself. Alright, so we got our RCAs in for our subwoofer and our remote turn-on wire. We got the radio back in, and essentially at this point it's just all reassembly. We got our RCAs plugged in and a remote turn-on wire. The way we ran that is up through, just pulled the carpet back. We pulled the glove box out, which basically just unhooks and lifts out, and then that's what led us up to our radio itself. So the amp was all mounted, nice and clean. That'll totally hide under the seat, which is awesome. Now we can put the seat down, get everything buttoned up on the amplifier, got everything tuned. Let's go ahead and get it all hooked up. Okay, here we are in the trunk area. Now we ran our speaker wire to our custom Jeep box by NVX. We went ahead and got our positive and negative hooked up. at this point ready to clip it in. Now the way to do so, you'll see these little clips on the back of the sub on both sides. Now as you can see, there's corresponding slots on the back of the seat here, and these will hook right into those two slots, securing the box to the back of the seats, just so this box doesn't go anywhere. Now the best way to lock these in is before you pull the seat fully back and lock it into place, you line up both sides, and then when you're ready to lock the sub in, you pull the seat fully back. Now what this does, it totally locks in this sub, and it's not going anywhere. Now the best way to release the sub is you just fold down the seat. It'll release the clips around the back of the sub enclosure. Okay, so we got everything back together. Let's do our final test here. Wow, we got a lot of power. Alright guys, that's about it. Thanks again NVX for sending over those great parts. We got our sub in, we got our amp in, we got everything all wired up nicely with NVX wire. At this point, we're good to go. If you have any questions about this install, just go ahead and post a comment below. I'll try to have a couple of unboxings for all the parts that we installed today down in the description. Those links will be available. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you in the next video.